We're not good.
Yes, please.
Okay, everybody, good morning and Shabbat Shalom. Today, instead of reading Shakespeare, I would like to do something a little bit different. It is a very, very famous prayer and hymn that is often sung on Friday nights. I'm going to begin with the English translation. And it was originally, it's called Shalom Aleichem. It was not written by Shalom Aleichem, who was the famous writer who wrote a lot of tales of Tevye the Milkman, which much, much later became Fiddler on the Roof. But this is the original. He named himself after the prayer, hello and be at peace. And he often called himself the Yiddish Mark Twain until Mark Twain heard about it. And he said with a smile, I think I am the American Shalom Aleichem. And that was really quite beautiful. Anyway, we begin with the English translation, and then I'll do the Hebrew. And the English translation, I have added a little bit of extra to it. Peace be with your messengers of the Most High, of the sky and the universe. Come in peace, messengers of peace, messengers of the King of Kings, of the cosmos, blessed be he. And now I'd like to do it in Hebrew, but all of you know this. Please sing along with me. Shalom Aleichem. Malachim l'shalom, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Elyon, Kadosh Achuni l'shalom, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Sesrim l'shalom, Malachei Hashem, Malachei Elyon, Malachei Kadosh
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Yes, Rabbi.
Okay, so I like to play around and do the gematria kinds of things and work with the numbers and the names and the values and whatever. Okay, so if this marks 3 years at the concluding of book number 1 of Bereshit, okay, so the Hebrew number 3 is Shlosha, right, which also is used in the phrase Shalshelet HaKabbalah, which means, on the one hand, it means a threefold understanding of tradition, not just mysticism, but of tradition. But on the other hand, Shalshelet is a chain. So I congratulate the group on being another link in the chain of tradition by acknowledging 3 years of study of Torah. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Mysticism.
Very interesting, Rabbi.
What is the rabbi mentioned the word mysticism? Explain that, the rabbi, if you would.
Well, Kabbalah meaning the technical term for Jewish mysticism. So sometimes they talk about Shalshelet HaKabbalah is the chain of understanding mysticism. But in this sense, Kabbalah just means of all that we have inherited all that we have acquired in Jewish study.
And
And so,
the other interesting
in
thing,
the overall sense of the study of Kabbalah, is that what the Kabbalah is? Is Kabbalah?
Yeah, Kabbalah, depending on which way you want to
Yeah.
put the,
So-
you know,
so-
the emphasis. But that Kabbalah is a technical word for Jewish mysticism, but it's like Torah refers to the 5 books of Moses, but also all of Jewish learning is Torah.
Right. So what I'm just very quickly, I don't want to take away Marty's time here, but generally speaking, the word mysticism, what does that actually mean? The word mysticism, mysticism.
Oh, I'm not sure that I want. I want to start going to. It's an area that I do not get involved with much at all. So if Ricky or if somebody else wants to jump in with a definition.
I'm going to take a couple of minutes because one of the books I've read in the last 2 or 3 months had some great definitions, but to me, it's trying to make direct contact with the ultimate being, whatever it is, but direct contact. But I'm going to go find the book that I think I have this definition.
Okay, before we go further, David has been sitting very patiently while other people have been interrupting. So David, please say, and then
thank
Helene.
you so much, Marty. Anyway, all I wanted to say is that the real center of Jewish mysticism was in Safed, 16th and 17th century. It dates back as far back as then, maybe much earlier. And we visited Safed years and years ago during my first visit to Israel. And it's just a very interesting place and is traditionally a center for the Jewish mystics. And
Right.
I've always had an interest in them.
Considered Safed or Tzfat is considered one of the 4 holy cities in of Jewish history. Yeah.
Yes.
If I could just say a final word. The
Okay,
reason,
wait a minute, Michael. Helene has been very patient, please. And she usually has to leave in an hour.
I'm lucky to have an hour, but I was in Safed. I was in Safed, and the Kabbalah is part of my Orthodox family's total belief system.
Yeah.
And some of mine, and it has to do with reincarnations, and it has to do with what you said beautifully, God, complete connection, 1000% to God. That's all.
Interesting. Very good. Yes, Michael, you were going to say, and then, back to Ricky.
right, just one final word. The reason I brought that up is I can't help but remember some time ago when I was attending Knesset Israel in Hollywood, the Rabbi Elias, he referred to Kabbalah as hocus pocus.
Mhm.
That's as just hocus pocus, and I was kind of taken back by that because Marty, I come from Orthodox roots, myself. I don't practice that. I keep what I can in my religion, but that's the best that I can do.
Okay. I just want to interject something that I don't think we should dismiss it as hocus pocus. I would rather use the term, it's another interpretation of that we find interpretation of scripture that we find in Judaism.
Oh, Marty, I have a painting from Safed that is magnificent, and I would love to donate it to the temple if somebody wants to look at it. That it's been here, and when I was there, I bought it, and it's a very famous artist, I understand. So if you want it, let me know. Okay?
Thank you for the offer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rabbi,
No, let Ricky
Ricky,
give us
then the rabbi.
Yeah, you can see
from
where I found it.
That's Barry Holtz's book.
Yeah, on the chapter on Kabbalistic texts. There's a full paragraph, but I'll just read like the first sentence of each one. What can we say about mysticism in general? Generally speaking, mystics seek intimate knowledge of the divine that goes beyond intellectualization or rational thinking. That's A. B. Mystics tend to find in themselves something in common with the divine. C. Just as mystics tend to locate some aspect of the divine in themselves, they likewise tend to look upon the world of nature as a whole. D. Mystical religion almost always involves a special disciplined way of life. And E, this special discipline involves using various kinds of techniques of meditation or prayer. So that's according to whoever this is, Barry
Okay,
Holtz. Yeah, that, and I'm talking about Kabbalah, but that's mysticism in general. So Michael, I hope that helped you, that any form of mysticism would probably fit within that frame.
yes. Yes,
Well,
Rabbi.
maybe other relations.
I just wanted to, first of all, an apology for taking this astray with my just use of the term mysticism and Kabbalah. But Jewish history, certainly since the Middle Ages, is filled, Maimonides' time, is filled with this tension between the mystical / spiritual on one hand and the rational or the enlightened on the other side. So Rabbi Elias was not the first one to refer to mysticism as hocus pocus. That's probably, was done many times. But similarly, the mystics would totally defame the rationalists for overthinking rather than feeling and trying to connect in an intimate way. As you said. Then there's also the tension between the mystics and the Hasidim, but that's for a whole other time too.
That's right. So you have different variations on the theme. Yes, David.
Yeah, just one of the other things, and I was giving a lecture one night at the Shor Shemayim, and one of the rabbis there suggested that one of the things that was practiced by the mystics was astrology.
No question. No question.
And because I'm really not into astrology, although I study it, I asked about it, and he said, well, it wasn't something to believe in. It was something that they did mostly for fun, but it was part of what they studied, and that seems to be appropriate to what Rabbi Roman has just said.
Interesting. Okay, well, what I'd like to do is we have gone off into a discussion that is a tremendous tangent, okay, to what we're going to cover today. And so before we do go much further, I'd like to read our prayer in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher Kitchano b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. Amen. So with that, I would like to bring us back to the last chapter in Genesis. It's Genesis 50, verse 1. And David, would you care to read, start with verse 1?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Marty. And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept upon him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. And the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him, and so are fulfilled the days of embalming.
Okay, let's stop at this point. Any comments about verse 1, about Joseph, what he's doing? Again, Joseph has seen that his father has taken his last breath and has died. And so any comments about this?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay. Wendy beat you by a hair.
Okay, Wendy's first.
I just have a quick, I guess we'll call it history question about embalming.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a little bit. Can we come back to that?
Okay, it was just when we started doing it.
Okay.
I think this is related to what Wendy has to say, but
Okay.
I believe that this is might be the first instance in scripture where the Jewish custom of mourning and embalming and burial comes up. And I like to think of that as one of the highlights and the high points of the Jewish experience, is how we are supposed to mourn those who have passed. It is a beautiful, beautiful tradition, I think. And I love to follow it.
Very good. I'm sorry, Wendy, why don't you finish with what I was hoping to get it when we did the third verse, but since several people want to discuss this, it's fine.
Well, since you don't have to answer it now, we're going to get to it later, but I get that the Egyptians would embalm the bodies before they, I guess, prepared them for the pyramids. But when did the Jews start to embalm bodies? Because we're supposed to be buried pretty quickly. Yeah. So I just like, what's the timeline? And that's basically my question.
I would have to look that up, but we hadn't heard anything about embalming until this point. So I don't know if this is something because of Joseph and his very close ties with the Egyptian royalty and what is expected of Egyptian royalty.
Okay, the word just was like the trumpets blasted out. What happened here? And I'm sorry, I always ask you questions you have to look up the answers for.
Well, somebody may know. First, well, I'm going to ask Don and then the rabbi.
Yeah, thank you, Marty. I was just going to suggest that Joseph is effectively an Egyptian at this point, and so he's just carrying out what the Egyptians do upon death.
Yeah, very good, because that's how it starts out. That's how it starts out. Yes, Rabbi.
Well, this particular section leads into a lot of discussion in the rabbinic literature and in the Talmud and the Shulchan Aruch and whatever. But the interesting thing for all of us to remember is that when there's a tension or a disagreement between Jewish law and civil law, frequently, not always, obviously, but frequently, Jewish law defers to the civil authorities. So if the civil authorities, if it was the law of the land for bodies to be embalmed before burial, no matter how long it was, in this case, yes, traditionally Jews frown on embalming and frown on cremation and a number of other things. But when civil authorities override it, it's not that they look the other way, it's that it's permitted in the sense of a hierarchy of the mitzvot and the minhagim. So that's one of the discussions that comes out of this very passage.
Okay. Any other comments about this? I'd like to go back to the first verse that we read. And the reason is, it says, and I will read it, Joseph flung himself upon his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. Okay. And Any comments about that?
Okay, I'll jump in because I think you're leading in one direction, and I don't want to mislead or take it in a different direction.
Okay.
But I would challenge the translation.
I was going, that is one of the things.
All right.
Please.
My translation, I'm not going to say better translation, but my translation would be that he fell in the presence of, or in respect of his father, not that he flung himself on his father's face, kind of thing. So I interpret it a little bit differently.
Okay.
I don't know whether that helps or hurts your question, Marty.
It does, because it's a little different type of imagery that is selected here. When somebody is in mourning, and everyone at some point is touched by that event, why is this so important to state it in this fashion?
Because they don't want, go
ahead, Michael.
When I could see if someone is in mourning and they lose an absolute treasure and a precious human being, they sometimes they don't want to accept it. They just want to accept it. So when it says flung, I could actually see that, because the loss is so great, they don't want to accept it. They want to be with that person, even if it's for a second, just a momentary second, to be connected. So I could see the word flung being somewhat appropriate based on what I'm saying, trying to convey.
Okay. Any other opinions? Yes, Wendy.
Okay, here comes Wendy.
She beat your hand.
I just wanted to expound just a little bit on what Marty was saying, and I totally agree. Because one of the things, and I have written far too many condolence cards these last couple of months, is that especially when it comes time and you're making a decision if you're going to pull the plug or whatever, or if you should go and make the trek for those last few dying breaths, is once that person is gone, you can no longer reach out and physically touch that person. So that was the last touch he was able to give his father. And that may be part of why he did that.
Have we? Oh, yeah. Okay, Ricky.
Well,
Thank you.
Wasn't earlier that he was supposed to put his hands over his eyes? There was something about that we did. Let's see, wait a minute, where? Oh, I don't
So
know.
that was Jacob.
Yeah,
Joseph closed.
Joseph was supposed to put his hands over his eyes or close his eyes. So this is sort of a continuation of that same act, isn't it?
Well, yes.
I'm asking you.
And any other ways of looking at this?
Marty, Gail had her hand up, but it was kind of
Oh,
lost.
I missed it. I missed it. Okay, I'm sorry, Gail. Go ahead, please.
I was just thinking about the physical reaction when you first hear that someone really special has died. Your knees tend to buckle, or
Yes.
you're weak in the legs. So that's that downward motion that the rabbi was referring to.
Yes.
And I remember having that exact same reaction when I lost Kelly. So
I can understand.
Mhm.
What happens? Now here I do not know the Hebrew, but in English, the word face can also mean aspect. Okay, And if we were to look at this, Joseph is not just mourning his father, but he's mourning for what his father has stood for. If there are many aspects to Jacob, which we have been discussing, is he also mourning that? In other words, is he also mourning his teacher? Yes.
I would question that, Marty. I'm not sure how
Please.
well he knew his father. They didn't spend that much time together.
Yes, but in the meantime, what has gotten him through are the teachings of Jacob to Joseph, which allowed Joseph to survive. And he always attributes what he does to God. And that had to come from some teaching from somewhere. Yes, Helene.
The word soul has not been spoken about.
Correct. We haven't gotten there yet. But please.
I could wait. I think I could be here. Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
No,
now.
please talk about that.
Well, the soul is protected by the Orthodox. Immediately they have to hire someone who's not Jewish to watch over the soul, and so because the soul is so precious, and that's the issue. The issue is the soul. How do people did Jacob, when he talked about being attached to God, I think he was into this. His soul was attached to God. That's what I think.
Good way of putting it. Good way of putting it. So Jacob sort of did a good job of teaching some of this to his son.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. And any other aspects that in Joseph's life that he might have learned from Jacob? Okay, well, Grace, you have your hand up. Not Grace, I'm sorry, Joanne.
I'm sorry. I'm sitting here thinking about all this. And I'm going to tell I was a chaplain for 15 years in a hospital. And this couple was walking across the street to come visit someone in the hospital. The husband said, I don't feel well. The emergency was called and he was put in a hospital room. And by that time he had passed away. And the wife actually climbed on his body and she would slap him. Yeah, he's dead. And she did this about 4 times. And finally she was calm enough. I had her sit next to him and hold his hand. And we said a prayer. And I prayed for his soul. I prayed that he would have be okay, that she would be okay, and that this companionship both of them had it wasn't dead. It would continue in her memory. And I think when I hear all this, I think of Joseph, who grew up and was the very favorite of, I'm sure, his mom and his dad. And he learned many things, but at this point in time, that part of him that was his parents is now gone. And I guess I think of that as kind of the flourishing of the souls, maybe, of all of them. But when I read this passage, that's what I feel. So.
Okay. Now I'm going to just venture it from a different direction. Don, I apologize. Your hand is up.
No problem. As we come to the end of Genesis, it's like, there's so much to think about for me. I just want to say, will you guys continue? I'm just going to stay here for.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I have a particular question about this last few verses. So Jacob had kind of a sordid life, really. He started off, his mother was complicit in robbing the birthright from Esau, and Esau went on to become an independent guy who displayed the first real forgiveness in Genesis by forgiving Jacob for robbing him. And then, there are all kinds of incidents along the way that really tarnished Jacob's image. And so now we come to the end of his life. And also, there's a lot of deceit involved. And that deceit was transmitted down to his sons, all except for Joseph and maybe Benjamin. But they were all deceitful people. And so you have to wonder whether they got that from Jacob or from their mother or what. But we're coming to the point now where all of a sudden Jacob is revered by everybody. And it doesn't seem to me that he really earned that reverence. But it is coming to a close. And Joseph, of course, is picking up the torch from the family. And now I'm rambling again, but I'm just wondering whether Jacob really has earned what. I mean, in the end, when someone dies, you have to consider that they're just human like all of us. All their faults, our faults. I'm wondering how Jacob comes up so well here. and that was pretty loose question.
What do you think?
I don't really know, Marty. It's the narrative. The narrator is unknown. We don't know who's telling this. But I'm thinking Jacob, in my eyes, is not such a great guy. And in fact, the line is broken here because at least for Joseph, because now we have an Egyptian offspring coming in through an Egyptian mother, same as Esau had an Egyptian mother. So I don't know what to think.
Is somebody in the Jewish religion always 100% pure?
No, there are no saints in Judaism.
That's right. That's right. They're more human. They're more human. It's a human experience. I don't know. What you raised is something. Gail, did you have more to say on that? And I know David has his hand up.
It's just that I agree with Don because I all the characters that we've read about in Genesis are flawed in one way or another, which is why they're interesting, which is why we study it. And I'm kind of relieved there are no saints because I can't live up to that. There's
Okay. David? Or is that Wendy?
I mean, and I'm sure we have all seen this happen, and this goes along with what Don and Gail were saying. I have seen people, and I've said far too many goodbyes, especially even to young people. But to people who were, as Gail would say, we're not saints. And as soon as somebody passes away and they die, all of a sudden, everybody, they lift them up in their thoughts, and what they say is that they've just become a saint, like they were perfect. And they, of course, never say any of the bad things this person may have done, just all the good. And that's what was going on with Jacob. They were just remembering the good, and yeah, he became a saint, so to speak. And that's about it. People do that when she died.
This is
point.
something that, yeah, Wendy, this is something that I have experienced many times, most recently with your mom. That after mom was very controversial during her lifetime. She had some unusual opinions and some unusual behavior. And during a eulogy, Wendy's sister Joni said that, and the way she described it, I thought was beautiful. She said, Mom had her way. And whether we agree with it or not, that was her. And we remember her. She was a good person.
Right.
But it's nice to know that this
Well
actually goes all the
stated.
way back to the end of Genesis. This is really quite beautiful for me.
Yes. Yes, Rabbi.
I don't know if Helene had to leave, but
Yeah.
in respect to her study and her knowledge, there's also a way of looking at verse number 1 as stages or steps in bereavement and in grieving. As Gail said, and I know it very well also, when you realize, the recognition of a death in front of you, you buckle, you fall, literally, whether it's physically or whether it's emotionally, you lose it in a sense, you lose your balance, I guess would be the best phrase. And then the next stage would be to allow yourself to mourn, to cry. And then the third stage here with the verb of to kiss him, but is to acknowledge the love and the respect, the way that we're talking about it, whether not to make them all saints, but to recognize the kind of memory that will live on, and we kiss that, we cherish that.
Right. Oh, you opened, Rabbi, it was beautiful the way you said it. First Don, then Gail, and then Ricky.
Well, thank you, everybody, because everybody comments always get me to clarify my own thinking. But the one quality I think, knowing we're all flawed, that the one quality I look for in myself and people is ability to forgive, because we all get unjustly treated and we treat others. So when
Sorry, Don, Yom Kippur's not for another 3 weeks yet.
I spent 7 years as my father's caregiver, his last 7 years. And that was a hard decision because he was not present in my life. And he, frankly, may he rest in peace, he was not a what you call a nice person. And so, but I learned about forgiveness and that you really forgive yourself in the end. So looking back at Jacob and Jacob's family, as I said before, Esau forgave Jacob, right, robbing him of his birthright. And that seemed to me an act of pure generosity and goodwill and good spirit. And that was the first time I'd come across that in the Torah. And now I know Joseph, I know just reading a few lines ahead that Joseph is going to show the same quality with his brothers. I guess from this point on, I'm going to be looking for forgiveness everywhere we touch. I don't know how many years will it take to get through the next 4 books.
At this rate, a long time.
You're not going to see the end of it.
Okay, Gail, as you were going to say.
Well, I was just going to comment on part of our respect that we show those who have passed, even though they may not be a perfect person, is the kind of send-off we give them. And there's a lot of detail that goes into sending someone off. You pick their coffin or they're going to be cremated, what they're going to wear, who's going to come, who's going to say what. So there's a lot of work, but that's part of the grieving process that helps you get through it, is having to attend to all these business-like things. So that's a healing in that, getting things set, ready.
Good point. Yes, Ricky.
Slight aside, I was once told that we're never 100% an adult until we've lost both our parents. And, I think about that every now and then, that, when my mother was still here, I wasn't right now, Jacob is a full adult. That means if I were to believe that sentence that somebody once gave me.
You mean Joseph is now a full adult?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jacob, now he's an orphan.
And the flip side of
Yeah.
that is that at no matter what age, you're still an orphan, and that still has psychological impact, right?
Yes. So all of this is
more
going
than just a term.
So this is more about the human condition, because look at what this one sentence has brought out. Because we have all experienced these feelings at different times. And there's, so the Egyptians also do have wailing and a 40-day period, including the embalming and everything. This is the way the Egyptians did this. Then it goes on to say, and when the wailing period was over, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's court. Okay, so in other words, here too is a period of mourning. Okay, and so if somebody wants to pick up where we left off.
I will. Was it?
All right. It does.
Was it 4 or was it 5?
Yeah, 4.
4. And when the wailing period was over, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's court, saying, "Do me this favor and lay this appeal before the Pharaoh. My father made me swear, saying, I am about to die. Be sure to bury me in the grave which I made ready for myself in the land of Canaan. Now, therefore, let me go up and bury my father, then I shall return." And Pharaoh said, "Go up and bury your father as he made you promise on oath."
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I like that the Pharaoh gave in to Joseph's request. That he respected Joseph enough to honor him, to let him go and trust that he would be back.
Okay. Very important. Yes, yes, Grace.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My thought here, excuse me, is that Joseph is really trying to present himself both as an Egyptian and an Israeli, because here he is, he's like, okay, we're gonna, call in the physicians, let's embalm, my father. And then he's, well, I gotta honor his wishes, so we gotta take him in, place him in the grave where in Canaan. So he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, but he's very diplomatic. He's saying, well, we've got to do it this way, and we're going to do it this way. So that's just my thought about what we've read thus far.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Any other comments? Well, this is what the rabbi was leading up to in what he was saying, that there's a lot to be done. You have the initial point of shock, of grief, and then duty, what has to be done. And any other comments about that?
Why doesn't he go to the Pharaoh directly in person?
It's a good question. Any guesses? Yes, Joanne.
Just could Rabbi please re-ask the question?
Oh, why, I'm sorry. Why does Joseph have others approach the Pharaoh, and why doesn't he go directly? He certainly has a close enough relationship with the Pharaoh. Why does he ask the court to send the message to Pharaoh?
It would be tradition.
Protocol.
Protocol?
It could be.
Protocol.
Afraid of a no answer? You know, he was afraid he'd be turned down?
Okay. Is it,
Incidentally, the Orthodox or the traditional commentary is that he didn't want to have in his state of bereavement, he didn't want to be obligated to what's the word I'm looking for, to demean himself or minimalize himself in front of another authority. In other words, in the presence of death, you acknowledge Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. I bless the true judge. God above, rather than him having to recognize an earthly God with a small g. So he avoids going to the Pharaoh's palace himself.
I don't know if the Egyptians, if there was an issue at any time, and I have to look this up also. I'm raising a question. It's not an answer, but did the Egyptians have a fear of that you may bring evil spirits from the dead?
Right, maybe, right.
To that, we have a ritual of hand washing after we visit the grave site. Is this another form of this, or is this what is expected in that process from? I just don't know enough about it.
That's a good one, Marty. Another one might be that just the Beit Paro that's referred to here, which our English is usually translated as the Pharaoh's court, they might be the funeral directors.
Yeah, I just don't know the answer
Right.
here. I'd have to do a lot of research on that. Yes, Don.
Yeah, it seems reasonable that the Pharaoh already knew about his number one spotter's death. I mean, I'm not, Pharaoh knew pretty much everything going on, but that there, for death, where death was a big deal in Egypt at that time, and then was most likely a protocol that you went through, quite formal, I would imagine. But we probably can't know.
Another thing just popped into my head. How many people have experienced wailers being hired for a funeral? Yeah. And it took me by surprise when a non-family member started that type of behavior, because I didn't expect it as a kid. And so I'm sure the rabbi, you've experienced that. Do you still see that today?
I haven't seen it in quite a long time, and not since an inner city funeral back in Detroit. But I just I just remembered another midrash about this, that Joseph sends the advisors of the court to ask of Pharaoh, because um, Jacob is to be buried back in the cave of Machpelah, not locally. Okay?
Right.
And Joseph is hesitant to ask the pharaohs that, so he has the advisors put it in the context of, I swore an oath, I told my dad this is what I promised that I would do this, and da 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 da, you know, hoping that the advisors to the pharaoh will help convince the pharaoh to allow Joseph
Yeah.
not only to bury him there, but to leave and go there, which is why he adds the phrase, and I'll definitely come back. You know, don't worry, I'm coming back. I'm not
Right.
deserting you.
Good point. Any other comments? Oh, yes, Joanne, please.
You were mentioning whalers. I was one of the people at a Black funeral in the inner city that gave a small talk about the person that had died. But what I discovered is that someone would say he was a good guy. And then the whole church would sing-song this for a while. And then they would say, we're sorry he is gone. And they would sing-song this. But it's a form of wailing. But it was absolutely beautiful because it managed to get the emotions and to help them deal with the loss of this person.
So is the process of wailing or song, is it for the deceased, or is it for the bereaved, or both?
Both.
And so now, and this also can be a great topic for discussion with regard to prayer in general. Is it for God, for us, or both? But in this context, let's just say directed towards the wailing. What in some cultures that was very critical. Also song, because it allowed the soul to rise. Okay, it was like a send-off. Has anyone ever gone to an Irish wake?
Yes.
It's a joyful experience. They're encouraging the soul to depart, you know, with you know, that it's now free of all of the earthly problems that the individual had gone through, and it can go back home. Yes, Gail.
I've always thought the best funerals, and I'm being very serious here, is where there's a lot of laughter.
Yes.
There's a lot of laughter. It was a good person, and you can only smile, and you're going to miss them, but laugh. If there's a lot of laughter, it's a heck of a funeral. It really is.
Has anyone ever gone to a funeral in New Orleans?
Oh,
Oh.
the music and the parades and everything.
Yeah.
I have.
Each culture has its own customs.
Yeah.
But is it for the departed, or is it for those left behind, or both?
I think it's a celebration, don't you?
Yeah.
Celebration.
Well, those are celebratory ways instead of just crying.
Right.
Yes, David. I think that
Yeah,
it's
Wendy has something.
a windy hand. Yes.
All the rituals and the funerals are really for the people left behind. The
Yeah.
person who's gone, they're gone, but the people who are left, and you know, and I've known people who have said, yes, we did the celebration of their life and they're smiling and happy, but everybody forgets how that person is 1 week later when nobody is there anymore. And that's the difficult part. And that's the beauty of the Jewish tradition of saying the Kaddish till you have the unveiling, because you are allowed to grieve, you're allowed to feel that pain of losing the person. And so by the time you get to the final goodbye, it's easy.
Very, very well stated.
Yeah.
Yes, Michael. Michael, you're muted.
Yeah, I find that these celebrations can be somewhat adjusted. For example, weddings, I find weddings to be kind of depressing when it's a very happy occasion. Weddings are very happy, but there's a lot of solemnness in a wedding, which I find kind of unusual. A funeral is also kind of confusing to me, because usually you have a funeral and sometimes later you have a celebration of life. I believe that the celebration of life should take place as part of the funeral, or even before.
Right.
If somebody is about to pass away, that would be, I see, a time to have a celebration of life, so the person, it depends on each situation, but the person who's still alive could partake somewhat in that celebration of life.
Mhm.
And I'll go for, let me take one more approach. Birthdays. People hide their age, especially when you get older, when you're going to have a birthday. The celebration of a birthday is just that. God has given you, if you believe in God, and if you believe that God gives and God takes, you have to, the celebration is about another year of life. You don't hide that, you celebrate that. And people hide that day, which is, in my opinion, is stupid, ridiculous.
Well, but Jack Benny was always 39.
That's okay. But he celebrated that. See, he celebrated. But people,
Last year, I
it's the,
Okay, okay. Now let's let
year I
Ricky
celebrated-
and then Gail.
Last year, I celebrated the 40th anniversary of my 39th birthday.
So it can be also with humor, but some people have a fear, okay, that the evil spirit may, if they know how old you are, in reality, evil things may befall you. There are a lot of superstitions that are out there. So it's okay. But I'd like to move on. I don't want to digress into other events, but we're talking specifically about death. And actually, I get the feeling here that it is something that, although there is a tremendous gap in the life of the that's left behind, if you will, a tremendous gap that's left behind in the individuals that suffered the bereavement, but it is not necessarily a conclusion of something. When people are honored, when we honor our parents, what are we honoring?
God.
I just left it open-ended, so you can interpret it any way you wish. We usually honor them for giving us a start in life, no matter how difficult it may have been. But we still owe that to our parents. Do we set aside the pitfalls and all of the other bad things we experienced? Or do we grow from that. Because if it's just mourning the death here in the book comes to an end. But it doesn't quite come to an end. There's much more to the teachings that have been put down over the past 3 years in our lives. but in Jacob to Joseph, it's a very, it's solemn, it's personal, and it isn't trivial. Okay. And we know, we learn not just by what we hear, but what we observe and what we feel, so that we can be more of a participant in what we have been taught. So maybe that's sort of in all the spaces between the letters.
That's very well put, Marty.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I just think that there's a lot of, there is some, as the rabbi pointed out earlier, just these few sentences has so much packed into it. And we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. Okay, but again, this is the human experience. Yes, Don?
Well, at some point, it varies between people, but we fully experience our presence in the world. Like, here we are. I'm not quite sure how I got here, but here I am, and I have to accept it or not. It's the Adam and Eve. It's self-awareness. And then, if we're lucky, we're grateful, and we could take advantage of everything that life offers. But sometimes that's kind of hard to do. And also, the Adam and Eve experience, there's procreation, without which, the Bible would end pretty quick. And I always think that we're blessed with imperfect memories, because if we could perfectly remember the sexual experience, nobody would ever do it again. But we do know that that people from Jacob on will procreate, and that everything will expand, and we can expect more difficulty and more problems with self-awareness, and more hassle, and because Jews will just keep on, like everybody else, keep on procreating. So again, I'm expanding the question without coming to an answer.
Okay. Well, it's good thought. Any other comments? Yeah, yes, Joanne.
I'm sitting here, thinking about Joseph, and as he's got 40 days of just the embalming, and in that period of time, he's probably also busy in the court, but he's thinking about his father. And as I get older, my father becomes a little bit more special to me. His name, most people knew him by, was Scrapper, and he was a scrapper, and things in the family were harmful at times.
Oh, you
But
don't mean he likes scrapbooks?
I don't think so.
Different usage of our vocabulary has changed with time.
But it's my father played the fiddle, and he played it beautifully, and he could hear a song and play it. And my granddaughter has inherited that. And I'm sure she plays the violin and is going to be a music teacher, and is she's a senior at Butler. But in her, I see talents of my father passed on. And yes, he was a surfer, but he also loved music. And that's what I tell my family. So he
point.
was going through things like this.
Very good. David, I'm trying to recall Mark Anthony's soliloquy about upon Caesar's death.
You mean his, the big speech that he gives, I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And,
And that the good is often interred with their bones. That's right.
Yes, yeah, yeah, but this whole thing, I'm sort of, as I'm listening to you, Marty, and all the others, I'm sort of going on a little bit, and where we get to the point where he made a mourning for his father 7 days, which will be coming too soon, the origin of the Shiva. And this to me is really wonderful that we're finding out the origins of the Jewish customs of burial and mourning. It is so special. And Wendy has often told me that this is, for her, the highlight of her Jewish experience. And I agree with her on that. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Any other comments, or shall we try to move on a little bit?
Let's move
Okay,
on.
David, would you like to pick
Okay,
up
where are we? We're on
verse
9,
7?
Verse 7, okay. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, and all the house of Joseph and his brethren and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, and there they wailed with a very great and sore wailing. And he made a mourning for his father 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, "This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians." Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond the Jordan. And his sons did unto him according as he commanded them. For his sons carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in a cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham brought with the field, for a possession of a burying place of Ephron the Hittite in front of Mamre. And Joseph returned unto Egypt, he and his brethren, and all that went up with him to bury his father.
Okay, let's stop at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any comments? Yes, Joanne.
I'm going way back up to the beginning here. It says only their children, their flocks and their herds went with them. What happened to the women? Did the women stay with the children? Did they go with them to cook? It has no comment about any woman going with them, but they had to be gone. It would take a long time for this. So they had to be gone about 3 months, maybe, or longer. You know, who's doing it? Just doesn't mention them.
It's a good observation, very good observation on your part.
The assumption,
Okay.
the assumption is that in the phrase "in all of Joseph's household," that meant the women.
Okay.
Okay, but you're right. Who was going to stay and take care of the children?
Yeah.
Or the herds?
All the concubines. I mean,
Yeah.
Gotta do something useful.
Every discussion like this needs a little levity. Okay. Yes, Don.
I'm going back even a couple more verses where Pharaoh gives his approval. And he does that by saying, "Bury thy father as he made me swear. That seems like pretty unusual from Pharaoh, because Pharaoh is the absolute authority for everything. And so he's granting Joseph his independent vow here. He's recognizing him as a real person.
But what would happen? Let's flip that around. What would happen if Pharaoh said, "No, you have to stay"? What would the Pharaoh's decision, if he had made that decision, how could it have been taken by Joseph?
Well, in modern times, the CEO would say, "No, I need you at a board meeting on that day."
But what happens when the CEO says that?
Usually the employee complies.
But what goes on in the mind of the employee?
Well, you get resentment, of course.
Exactly.
But in the case of the supreme ruler here, I'm just wondering, what would Joseph have thought? What would he have done?
It would have been a huge distraction for Joseph forever. And he would know he possibly could have lost all of his abilities for personal reasons, other reasons too, we do not know. But the relationship with Pharaoh from that point on would have been strained.
Yeah, and Joseph, of course, would have lost his 401k and all of that.
Sure. So this is also a message to other people that sometimes when it comes to the bereaved, they need their space. Otherwise, if we prevent them from that space, whatever that space is, and each person will interpret it differently. If they're denied that space, their thoughts will not be of gratitude anymore.
I was in that situation once when my mother died, and my boss, who was one of the principals of the company, I said, "My mother died, I want to go to the funeral." And he said, "No, I need you that week. We all lose our parents." And that was the end of that. So I went anyway. But I had that, and then I soon resigned from the company.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way. And if the boss may have lost somebody who is much more valuable than he thought. Yes,
I
Rabbi.
did the right thing, Don.
Yeah, you did the right. I agree. Yes, Rabbi.
I think I'm not familiar with it in the Midrash, but I'm sure there's one that says that Joseph had it in his mind that if the Pharaoh said no, Joseph would have turned it into, "Well, I had this dream, and and you know how I am with dreams, so you better let me go because something like that." But I believe that it's it's a positive statement about the Pharaoh, not only in accepting or understanding or empathizing with Joseph's grief, but recognizing the importance of a vow made from son to father.
Very good points.
Yeah.
So any other comments about that? Yes, Gail.
I just like permission from the rabbi to keep that line. I'd like to keep it because I might need to use it sometime when I'm in an awkward position.
about the dream, you know how I am. Be my guest.
And I have a witch in my ancestry from New Salem witchcraft trials. Yeah, Alice Lake was one of my ancestors. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, Wendy. Go ahead, Wendy. Wendy,
they-
David's screen
they
is
froze.
frozen and yours is. We cannot hear anything, so because everything is frozen. Wendy, do you want to try your own computer? The sound was working well for you.
Someone had a dream.
That's
Or
what
a
we're in.
nightmare.
We've just lost David and Wendy. So I think they're going to try to sign on again. Anyway, any other comments? And then we'll get back to Wendy when she comes in. So, any other, I just wanted to mention, how many times have we heard now about this land? Oh, Wendy is back on. I don't know about David. Wendy, you're muted, Wendy.
David lost the connection.
Oh,
And
okay. Well, you're
everything's-
coming in loud and clear.
Well, that's my cell phone.
It's okay.
So I don't know where you lost me, but I was just saying that it's a sign of respect to allow the person to grieve or do what they need to do. And it gives the respect right back to your boss, so to speak, for allowing you to do this. And that was what was super important.
Yes. So how we behave at times of any major event is very important, and not only says something about our personal character, but the characters of others that we may have to work with. So it's an interesting. This whole conversation is very important. But the cave of Machpelah. How often has this been said? I've lost count. It's a very important
I mean,
statement.
who's buried there?
Excuse me?
I mean, who is buried there?
No. The cave, just this purchased property, is mentioned over and over and over in multiple ways. After Abraham purchases the cave and the land around it. Any ideas? Because in my mind, it's sort of strange to have it has to be mentioned so many times in Torah. Yeah, yes, yes, please, Joanne.
Well, I believe you mentioned at one time about the cave that because Abraham had purchased this, it taught us or taught the Jewish people, Israel, the importance of purchasing land. It helps to belong and know that this belongs to the people of Israel, even unto this day. And that's, I don't know, you mentioned that, and that's what's stuck on my head.
Well, this is one of the opinions out there. Yes. So I'm going to call on Suzanne first, Michael, and then you. Suzanne has been fairly quiet today.
It's not so much a comment, but a question. Do we know what the name Machpelah means? Maybe that would shed some light on this question.
Of Machpelah,
Yeah.
I would have to refer that to the rabbi.
Comes from a root that means to add upon or to double or to multiply kind of thing. So it's, you know, multiples. I mean, the guides, when if they would take you there, they would in Israel, in Hebron, actually in the Palestinian Authority, in one section that Israel controls, they would say it's because it's a multi-layered. There's multiple layers in that particular cave.
Mhm.
But where the exact origin, there's only legend. There's nothing specifically that I know of.
Okay. Yes, Michael, and then Don.
Oh, yeah. I don't know when mentioned the cave, would it have anything to do, so I'm just kind of reaching here, Marty, but would it have anything to do with community?
In what way, Michael?
Well, the cave would be large, I would think, and there would be a place where people, a lot of people would be involved.
Okay. And so who are the people that would be involved? Those that are interred there. Is that what you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
like a burial site, you know.
A family burial site. Okay. And why are those so, well, I'm going to, Don, is it okay to, what Michael just said, for me to just ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, keep going.
Well, what is so important about a family burial site?
Well, it's to keep it's simply to keep the family together. You keep the family together in life and death, I would
Okay.
think.
Okay. For those of us that only know the stories about the family, okay, why is it so important to have that? Is that sort of like a hidden part? You know, a cave has lots of shadows. Okay. And are those shadows the memories of all the generations and what they stood for? Is that part of the family burial plot to remind us? Is it like a monument?
Why not?
I don't know. I have no idea. I just toss out the question. Yes, go ahead, Don.
Well, I think it's a really good image. Marty. What I was going to say was, at this time, the split between hunter-gatherers and property owners was still pretty fresh. So, as you say, the ownership of the caves and this burial ground keeps getting mentioned because Esau was a hunter, and he didn't have any land to speak of. He was half the family at that time. So it seems to me like there was a lot of emphasis on how you own property. You know, what was the deed? Did you just keep repeating it and saying, "This, I bought this. This is mine"? I don't know how they did it in those days. They didn't have it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Rabbi, please.
Yeah, I think, Marty, I know that you asked the question specifically about the cave.
Yes.
But to me, the most important repetitive phrase is that this was purchased.
Purchased. That's right.
Okay.
It's purchased.
Joanne was leading
That's
up
right.
to, and Don was talking about it a little bit also.
Yes.
Is that this was our stake in the land, and so the narrators, the biblical authors throughout the generations have said, aha, see, this is our proof of connection, you know, in a legal sense to the promised land.
Okay. Very, very well put. Any other comments about that? Yes, Joanne.
I'm just thinking of my own burial ground, and it's in back of the church. And I
Joanne,
can go
you just,
through and see the tombstones.
okay.
Oh, I can go through and see the tombstones and tell you the history, a story, etc. So it's a connectedness for over 100 years I can do, because I'm so old, I guess. But, you know, but I tell more woman stories, because one of my aunts make bread that you can't believe. Another one could can beans that were unbelievable, you know. So, but when you think of this burial ground, I think of all the stories that are there that you can walk in and say, okay, this is this, and tell the history from there. It keeps it alive.
Okay, yeah, it does. It does.
Mm.
Michael,
I just thought of this, that when, as a family grows, different members of the family wind up in different areas of the country or maybe the world. And to have a family plot would bring everybody back to the entire family is brought back to one place. That's something I had considered. That could be a possible.
okay, it's a good point. Good point. David, did you have your hand up for a while?
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
connected back to this wonderful group. I love it.
Oh, all right. And Ricky, I think you're just munching peanuts or whatever.
Pistachios.
Well, I was close. I was close. Anyway, so why don't we see if we can, this is how Joseph handled it. Now let's see how the brothers handled Jacob's demise.
Could I make one more comment?
Oh,
about
sure.
this? Okay. When I'm reading, I think it's, I know where it is, I'm just not finding it. But I guess because they did all the wailing and the lamentation, etc., the people said, oh, it's the Egyptians, but it also was really the Jewish people also. But because of that, there was no wars, nobody went for a fight for this huge retina of people. And I think that's really important in this.
Okay. I wanted to bring something up. I almost forgot this. So thank you for we would have omitted this part of the discussion. If you notice, the Egyptians have gone up by to Canaan in a very circuitous way. They have gone east of Jordan. Is Canaan on the east side of the Jordan?
Yes.
I think it's on the west side.
On the west side. So they're taking a very circuitous route. And
I think they wanted to stop at a McDonald's on the way.
excuse me?
Stop at a McDonald's on the way.
Okay, okay. So any ideas about that? It says let me just oh yeah, verse 11. This is all verse 11, and this is where they stop to mourn before entering the land of Canaan.
Marty?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
Rabbi.
so Eitz Chaim gives a specific answer to this. Okay, that Goren Ha'atad, the name of the place, is probably a particular tell situated 4.5 miles southwest of Gaza on the eastern Mediterranean coast. Little to the south of the town lies a late Bronze Age cemetery, which was a burial ground for high-ranking Egyptians serving in Canaan and for Egyptianized Canaanite rulers and dignitaries. That would explain why the cortege halted at this place, Abel Mitzrayim, for public homage to Jacob in his own country. And then from that, also with that recognition, comes the Jewish tradition of a funeral procession stopping at up to 7 places that have major importance in the life of the deceased. So it could be that they went to that particular cemetery just as an honorary stop, because that's where prominent Egyptians were buried, and then continued on recognizing some of the stops that Jacob had made in his journeys to then approach Hebron from the east and heading west. That's the way Eitz Chaim describes it.
Well, I think that's very important because it seemed like a very circuitous way, and I did not have.
They say that it recognizes and pays homage to both the way that the Egyptians would have, I don't want to say mourned, but would have honored Jacob in Joseph's presence, because that was their way, and then continued on recognizing the Israelite Jewish pattern.
Good point. Very good. Yes. Okay, Gail, and then Don.
Yeah, just quickly, we were talking about or asking why Rachel was buried at the side of the road rather than in the cave. Remember last week or the week before? And one of the explanations that I found was that for some funeral processions, it was traditional to stop at Rachel's grave. And that was the Orthodox explanation of why she was buried on the road rather than in the cave, which seems a bit far-flung, but okay.
All right. Don?
I'm wondering too, it's still over 400 years before Joshua invades Canaan, but I'm wondering if all this repetition is in preparation to justify that invasion. Because it's the promised land. You know?
It's another valid interpretation, I guess. Maybe it was just, that was the way the highway system was. Remember, they're bringing chariots. They're not going to do so well over lumpy, bumpy roads. And you're going to have to bring a lot of wheels along with, because a lumpy, bumpy road on a chariot does not work too well.
At least by Roman times, which granted is 1,000 years later, okay, that's not the way that the road went.
Right.
The road from Egypt to, Syria or whatever did not go that way to come around east. Now, that doesn't mean that there weren't alternative routes or detours, but the main road, no.
Okay. The only reason I brought that up was that there are, when you have such a large group going through, remember they're coming up from Egypt, they're going to probably figure out a highway system of getting there. And which is, and even if it's no direct route, they still have to, with the numbers of people and everything, you can't just go over, anywhere. You can't go on a direct route here. You have to go from city to city in order to get to a final destination here.
It sounds like our airline schedules. You have to go through the hub.
Yes. So anyway, shall we read? Yeah, we can do this. Now let's see what Joseph's brothers,
Oh, I love this one.
how they dealt with the death of Jacob. So if somebody would like to read, Gail, I know you have something in front of you, and Ricky,
Yeah.
anyone else?
Where do you want to start? What verse?
This would be verse 15.
Oh, okay. And, boy, moving right along. 15, and Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead. Hello? And they said, if Joseph will despise us, he'll pay us back all the bad that we dealt to him. And they commanded to Joseph, saying, your father had commanded before his death, saying, you shall say this to Joseph, please bear your brother's offense and their sin, because they dealt you bad. And now bear the offense of the servants of your father's God. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him.
Okay. Let's stop at this point. Yes, Rabbi, your hand is up
I
already.
wanted to get in right away. Again, some of your commentaries may include this midrash. It's a very famous one, but I have an ulterior motive for mentioning it. I'm going to read it directly or verbatim from the midrash collection that refers to verse 15. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, it may be that Joseph bears a grudge against us. What did they see that made them afraid? As they were returning from burying their father, they saw that Joseph turned off the road and went to look at the pit into which his brothers had cast him. Okay. Upon seeing this, they said, he still bears a grudge in his heart. Now that our father is dead, he'll make his hatred of us felt. But in fact, Joseph's motive was a pious one. He wanted to utter a blessing for the miracle wrought for him in that place. Now, my ulterior motive is that, again, when this midrash is written, there's already a different minhag, a different custom in Jewish tradition. It's called, some of you may know it, it's called Birkat Gomel. It's the prayer that's recited when one has safely emerged from an accident, a tragedy, an illness, coming back safely off of a journey, whatever it might be. And the rabbis use this particular midrash as the foundational point for offering this Birkat Gomel phrase. And here's the method of my madness, if you will. So a week from Monday night, on Erev Rosh Hashanah, I'm going to suggest, since all of us have endured and emerged at this point healthy and safely from the pandemic, as well as other illnesses or other tragedies in our lives, that we're all going to begin our Rosh Hashanah experience by reciting. There's a musical interpretation as well as reciting the prayer of Birkat Gomel, when we realize that we have safely come through this last year.
Could you give it to us in English, Rabbi?
We'll give you what?
The prayer.
Oh.
Could you repeat it to us in English?
Oh, simply it's thank you, thank you God, Baruch atah Adonai, thank you God for providing, forget the English that we're going to use on next week, but for providing goodness to me, though I am unworthy. Is the traditional wording. Who has provided Shegamalani Kol Tov, so who has provided for me goodness even in the face of difficulty.
Very good.
My rabbi in Connecticut did one over me when I came back. I used to do hurricane rescue work. And when I got back after 3 weeks after Hurricane Ike, I was a different person, but he said that over me because it was a harrowing experience.
Right.
If you go anyplace right after a hurricane.
When I first started thinking about this and planning for it, it was before the Delta variant had really impacted us so much, but I think it's still worthwhile.
Good point. Joanne, was your hand up? Or I thought I saw someone else's hand up for a while. Okay. Well, what do you think about Joseph's brothers?
Oh, I think they're lying, conniving, scared. They're so afraid of what Joseph's reaction is going to be that they'll do anything to mitigate the circumstances by putting it all on Dad. Dad said you have to do this. So there's a lot of blame in there. There's a lot of stuff in that paragraph.
Okay, so have they haven't really, are you
They
trying to
haven't
say they
atoned
haven't felt
for what
the
they did.
experience of what transpired in our lives a month or two ago? You know,
Yeah,
they didn't truly atone for
No,
what
they
they
have
had
not.
done, even though they had been forgiven.
Nope.
It raises another question. What if you have already been forgiven? Why would you have to atone after the fact? Or should they have all atoned
Right.
before the fact, and then they would have been entitled to forgiveness?
Good question.
I think forgiveness is only for the person who is forgiving. It has got nothing to do with the person who needs to be forgiven.
Mhm.
You know, it's so I can forgive somebody for their actions doesn't mean they've stopped feeling guilty for their actions. That's their side of the situation, their side of the
Okay.
formula.
Okay. Any other ways of looking at that?
So
No, go ahead, Gail.
I just have a question. So we have to assume that Jacob spoke to the boys because they're saying he said this,
He did.
but well, we've never seen it before. We're taking their word for it, correct?
Okay, now I have to go back through this.
I don't think he ever spoke directly to them. I didn't even know he knew about it. Or am I wrong? Maybe, I don't
Well,
know.
I have to go back myself.
Rabbi, help.
No, we don't have any indication that Jacob knew the real story.
Correct.
He may have surmised, but there's nothing textually that says he was aware of what the brothers had done.
There's something else. Yes, Suzanne, while I'm trying to find this, it's a play on what Jacob has already said. But yes, please, Suzanne.
Yeah, the brothers, in my opinion, are underscoring the saying a leopard doesn't change its spots. I mean, no matter what Joseph did for those brothers, they're still nasty. They're just nasty.
Okay, no, I'm going to have to look this up, but somewhere in the back of my mind that they are trying to state what to say that just 1 second. Let me read that again. I apologize. It's on one of the trips when they come back with the news that Joseph is still alive. They are told to say certain things and they don't quite say it.
Right.
In the same way in which it was described. I'll have to look that up. I apologize, but it is a, but yeah, on their mind, what's going on in their minds? Are they truly, it's more or less fear as opposed to feeling sorrow or remorse or things like that. Seems like a strange way of showing bereavement. Yeah. Yes, Joanne.
All these people from Egypt, these high court people, would all have had their own soldiers and other things with them, most likely. And so Joseph is in charge of all this. And he could very easily have said, okay, do away with my brothers. They treated me incorrect. They treated me wrong. So I can really see that the brothers would be very frightened of Joseph at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, but just because you're scared, which is a word I used before, doesn't give you permission to lie. They're trying to cover up their fear with this lie about what they say their father said.
You're correct.
It's.
Well, they were afraid. It says
they were
fearful. They were fearful of what Joseph may be able to do now that their father has died.
Being scared doesn't condone this kind of bad behavior. At this point, I don't like these guys,
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is something that people will think about. Yes, Suzanne.
I agree with Ricky. I don't care much for these guys either. And Joseph has not once in this whole story ever given any indication that he was going to take revenge on any. Not one word for them to even think that.
Good point.
That's why I go back to my leopard doesn't change their spots, because these guys are just nasty from the get-go.
Yeah.
And at the end of verse 17, and Joseph was in tears as they spoke to him. Oh, I'm sorry. That's Wendy.
Well, based on what was just said about Joseph never really saying to his brothers, I'm going to do something to you, that's the elephant in the room. They never came to grips and made up for this or talked about it or apologized. And so it's always there in the back of their head. And that's why they're scared now. Uh-oh.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, Marty.
Yes, Suzanne, go ahead.
I think Joseph said to them at one point, said to the brothers that that God worked what had happened for the good. That it may have started off, for evil intentions or something like that, but God worked it all for the good, so that everything came out well for everybody.
So why is Joseph crying?
Well, I think Joseph is crying because, I think for several reasons. One, I think it had to do with his father, the loss of his father. And two, for the realization that his brothers are big jerks.
Yeah.
To paraphrase the song, when will they ever learn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Rabbi.
Can I ask what verb people have at the start of verse 16? This one, the one I'm looking at here, says they sent a message to Joseph.
Yeah. So
Yes.
They sent this message to Joseph.
Yes.
Does anyone have anything totally different, surprisingly different?
Well, I got another one here. Hold on.
Commanded to Joseph.
Aha,
Yeah, that's Friedman.
right.
Yeah,
The verb is they commanded
yeah.
Joseph, not they sent a message and wondering why didn't they approach it. This was a they ganged up on him.
Well, here, so they instructed that Joseph be told. I have.
I mean, but
I like
still,
him.
who's
Yeah.
the instructor? Who's the one in charge?
Okay.
So, I mean, the English is that most of us have kind of make it a courtesy,
Yeah.
They sent this message, but that's not what the Hebrew seems to say. It's a different relationship.
Yeah, that's what Friedman says. He
Yeah.
insists on command. Yeah.
I mean,
I was also going to pick up on the next part of that. Before his death, your father left this instruction. They don't say our father.
Oh,
In
interesting.
verse
Yes.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is an unusual way of putting it.
Mhm.
Does that raise any questions in your mind?
well, our father would have been emphasizing their relationship as the basis for what should happen in the future. Putting it as your father means that they're relying on Joseph's relationship with Jacob as the motivation for forgiving the brothers.
Okay. I would have taken it as that our would have also included Joseph. That's just my own take on it. That I wouldn't have fitted that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
it was, hey, we're all brothers.
Yeah.
We're all sons of the same father, familiarly, as opposed to a last act of of respect for your father
Right.
should be ...
So it's just a cumbersome way of doing it. So any other comments? So we have.
Did we
Well,
beat to death?
we
the
don't
last
really.
one?
Do you want to stop at this point, or do you want to just go through to the next few verses?
We're so close.
I know.
I know, but we can't finish until Sukkot.
It's true.
No way.
Right? We want to go a full.
No.
Well, why don't we stop at this point? Because then we can, and then next week, I think we may be able to at least finish this part of everything. But then you remember, I promised you something. We need to go back. I gave you a clue, and this is also a plug for the rabbi's session. I can't be, I get a treatment on Monday. But I just wanted to put a plug in for the rabbi's session on a discussion of the 10 Commandments. And what is discussed.
Thank you for doing so.
Excuse me?
Thank you for doing so.
Okay, you're welcome. But I also want to say that that will dovetail into next. I don't know if we'll get into that discussion the week that will start it next week or the following week, because what we're going to do is look at what we have been reading in the book of Genesis over the past 3 years, and how in each one of the stories you can say, I see one of the 10 commandments here. And in some cases, I know we have the Noahide laws and everything, but you're going to see something interesting. Okay. That maybe this is what we are expected to have picked up on, and we forgot to do it for over 400 years. And maybe it has to be given to us again. Okay. Maybe that's part of the writing. I don't know. But it helps tie the books together. Okay.
Or we could wait for another 15 years and get back to.
But to get to that point, it's going to take us at least that time. So anyway, enough said. Anyway, I just want to encourage everybody. I just can't be there, and I would have loved to have been able to. I think Sue is going to try to do it, depending on how things unfold tomorrow for
And I think
her.
it's recorded.
It is recorded.
Good.
Good.
Yeah, I would like to say before people leave is that Wendy and I went to the grocery store and discovered there that we can now get our booster shots for COVID. So Monday, Wendy and I are going to get our booster shots.
Yes.
And Wendy had something to add to that.
When we went out there, because it's been 5 months for us, not one, and we thought we were perfectly healthy until my doctor said to me, your white blood cell count is low, you are immunocompromised. And when I talked to the pharmacist, I said, do I need to show you blood work? And she said, they looked at me like, are you crazy? Everybody can just walk right in. So if you think you're compromised, you can go in and just tell them that, and they will probably take you because nobody's rushing in to get a booster shot.
By the way, the
So-
flu shots are available now too, so you might want to get that out of the way first, because then you have to wait to get the booster for the COVID.
One or the other. That's right. But it's those are all good points that are being made.
Yeah, anyway, just thought I'd let you know the booster shots are available and easy to get now.
Yes.
When I went and got my flu shot, they told me that as well, that you could get the booster shot. They had already been giving booster shots.
Yes. So that's good. Any other comments?
Which pharmacy was that?
Oh, I know
I went to
Safeway.
Walgreens.
Safeway.
Safeway, Walgreens.
So Safeway and Walgreens.
No.
Yes, Michael.
Just as a point of note, I'll give myself a little plug here, if I may. I'll be back on stage at Brother John's tomorrow between 2 and 5. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other announcements? Did you want to make any announcements, Ruth Ann?
Other than the fact that my life is getting in the way of my life. So I listened, I folded 2 loads of laundry, made breakfast. I finally took a shower, washed my hair. So, I had to get here for the end. So I apologize for the turban still, but, I can't miss this, but, I got other duties and half of them tend to be with BSTC. So
Ritual
whatever.
purity.
What? There we go.
Ritual purity.
I can't wait for the high holidays to be over. But believe me.
You say that every year.
Yeah,
You
well,
say that every year.
and I'm still saying, and then I only have 5 more months.
You're counting.
And then but who's counting? I feel like I did when I was getting ready to retire. This is retirement again. But just anybody still want challahs? We got quite a list of challahs, and Randy is not freaking the number of challahs that we have ordered. Anybody need prayer books? I will be at the temple next Saturday from 1 to 3. To give out challah mainly, but also to give out prayer books.
Tuesday you'll be there.
But that's just you and me. That's you and me, and that's it.
Oh, I just thought if somebody wanted to come in and just pick up a prayer book, they could. Okay, never mind.
If we're only there for 10 minutes, I'm not sticking around because it's Mahjong day too, and that's I guess last year was easier because there was no Mahjong. now that I'm trying to have a life of my own besides BSTC, it makes it way more complicated.
By the way, Ruth Ann, if you turn out that you do need me the day they're doing the hall and the books, I'm 5 minutes away, so just call me. Okay.
I'll just give you a buzz.
Okay.
Yes, Rabbi.
I just want to take advantage of this forum for a second. I'm sorry that I haven't been with you for a couple of weeks. Next week, when God willing, I'll be with you, but it will be from Stevenson, Washington, where I'm flying up quickly to officiate at a wedding that has been postponed 3 times. We're ultimately going to try to do it. But I want to put in a special thank you, to Marty for doing this, but especially this week to Ruth Ann, who went above and beyond. I was asked to record some music for a special Shabbat morning during Sukkot, we call it Chol HaMoed Sukkot service for the retired Reform rabbis of North America. And Ruth Ann helped me record all the music.
Wow.
So it can all be put together for all this. So she really went above and beyond, and I'm very appreciative, and the retired Reform rabbis of North America are very appreciative as well.
That was easy. That was nothing.
Standing ovation and
Thank you. Thank you.
Ruth Ann has been someone very special for our temple.
Yes.
She has. She's done a miraculous job.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's been a labor of love, believe me.
Yeah. And want to thank you, Rabbi, for everything you have been doing too. And I want to thank everyone for their participation and help in doing all of this.
Yeah. Marty, you have been phenomenal.
No, it's tired. Listen, this has been a schlep. You think about going from Egypt in a circuitous route to get into Canaan, the land of Canaan, which will be we're going to be doing that. This has been a 3-year schlep to get to this point, and we're still not there.
Well, but we're rescheduling the Israel trip, so we can try it again.
Yeah, but we're planning another one, another brief one.
Okay. Well, everyone have a
Shalom.
good Shabbat and a great week.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Ruth Ann.
Bye-bye.